You're listening to Behind the Veil. I'm your host, Pierre, and thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe before you leave this channel. Today's topic, I want to be brief and just share my thoughts and opinions on something that has been laid on my mind for a while. And I want to talk about oppression. Oppression in our society, oppression around us, and the things that we're dealing with. Me and a friend were just discussing oppression and what led up to the president that we have in office today. When we talk about oppression and we see what took place with in our country in 2008, seeing the first African American president, and I want to be very, like I said, I'm going to be very blunt and straight to the point, because this has been on my mind and I want to share this topic and try to see if I can get someone who's listening to what I'm saying and understand where I'm coming from, and also give you opinions on how you think what I'm saying makes sense. When we saw in 2008, we saw the very first African American president, President Barack Obama, become the first president. During the course of his presidency, we saw a lot of divide. We saw a lot of turmoil. There was a lot of anger, and there was a lot of just people who didn't quite agree with his agenda, didn't quite agree with what he stood for. Am I here to say that he was the best president that we ever had? No, I'm not here to say that. But I am here to say that I believe that the color of his skin played a drastic role in how people took what he was saying. I feel like it's kind of like a broken marriage. When a husband or wife are in the midst of separating or in the midst of falling apart in their relationship, no matter what the man or the woman do, there will always be a problem because it's falling apart. So the smallest little thing to the biggest little thing will always lead to, I don't agree with this, or this is not what I think you should do or shouldn't do. In other words, it's already set up for failure because it's falling apart. Seeing President Obama serve in his office, one of the things that we saw the most during his presidency was police brutality. And the question I would arise today, are we still seeing police brutality? Is that still a factor in our country? You really wouldn't know. Why? Because it's not being televised. A lot of the things that we saw on our platform, a lot of the things that we saw in our country rather, was being put in place to build up oppression. When we saw Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman, the oppression in that situation was to cause divide, to put George Zimmerman in the white man's category and say that it's a white-black situation. Every opportunity that the news and the media had, they allowed this to be put in the face of the American people, that there was a divide, that there was a problem. And a lot of the situations that we saw were not given to us in its full, it wasn't given to us in a proper manner. I'll say it that way. So what it caused was it caused divide. And a lot of people said, well, why did a lot of these officers who committed police brutality, why did they get off? Why were they not charged? Well, first of all of the facts were not given to us. And I served in a grand jury, and because I served in a grand jury, it gave me a better insight on what is presented to the jurors and the type of information that we receive. If the information and the details and the evidence is not there, you cannot bring charges against a person. Well, like I originally said, oppression. Oppression was put in place during President Barack's presidency to cause and to lead up to what brought Trump into office. Am I saying Trump is a bad president? Am I saying everything he has done has caused a divide? No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is what has taken place allowed us to have a president who said for 8 years that he thought Obama wasn't born in America because of the divide, because of the oppression. That's what led us to this situation. That's what led us to him being able to make it into the office. Seeing so many people, seeing so many news outlets pushing that, the fact that African American and white people did not get along, and then building this anger and building this main category of fear in the hearts of a lot of African and Caucasian people, it put us in that position. I think about oppression. I think about so many things with oppression. Me and a friend were talking the other day, and we were discussing oppression. And I think about slavery when Lincoln first freed the slaves. Oppression was, yes, you are free, but the big but was you couldn't go out and get a job. We, when it got to a point where, I'm going to move a little further, we were in the 60s, and I wouldn't say we because I wasn't old enough to be in the 60s, but even in the 60s, couldn't eat out of certain restaurants. You could serve your country, but you can go overseas and then come back to America and still not be treated like an American. You couldn't eat in certain restaurants. You couldn't drink from certain water fountains. You could only attend certain schools. The oppression was, yes, you're free on paper, but the ability to actually be free was not there. That is the oppression that we dealt with during Obama's presidency to set us up for a Trump presidency. And once again, am I saying Trump is a horrible person? I'm not. But what I'm saying is oppression is a deep thing. It's a very catastrophic situation. What it does is almost a person, it's just like a person who would be in a broken relationship or a person who's in an abusive relationship. The ultimate goal for a person who's controlling an individual is to first instill fear in their minds. Second, take away all of their rights, give them no ability to be free. And in turn, they become a slave again. Oppression is very deep. And we see that the oppression built up so much to the point where we talked to so many people. I talked to so many people during the presidency of voting for whether it was going to be Hillary Clinton, Trump, or anybody from the Green Party. I talked to so many people, and a lot of people that I spoke with said one thing: I'm not even going to the polls. What I've seen these last 8 years has just been so detrimental to my mind, to how I feel, seeing all this police brutality and all these people just getting off. I'm not voting. That is oppression. And to me, I feel like the media and those who set this up, job well done. To me, after seeing what we saw and seeing the media portray and all of these events that took place with police brutality, this should have pushed people to want to go to the polls and vote more. But it didn't. It oppressed them, and they said to themselves, I'm not going to do it. When Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks were being oppressed, they fought harder. And that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to fight harder. You don't sit back when someone is pushing against you. You get up and you push back. You don't have to push back by being violent. You don't have to push back by being evil. You push back by speaking your mind. And what I mean when I say speaking your mind, you use and you exercise your rights and your ability to vote, your right to get out and do your due diligence, what your ancestors fought for, and that's for you to speak and to be free. So when we look at today's society, we're falling back in oppression. Oppression is, you can't say this, you can't do this. If you say this, this is going to happen. If you act this way, this is going to happen. We're all, no matter what color we are falling in a slavery type oppression. And if we're not careful, it's going to get far worse than what it is before, far worse than what it has ever been. Because when not just one group, not just one ethnicity has been pulled into a web of slavery, but all that is when it becomes catastrophic. It's detrimental to all of us in terms of the rights of a person. For a prime example, you may have a person who don't believe in a certain way of thinking, or you may have a person who don't believe in a certain agenda. Someone may say, hey, I don't believe that my son should be dating a boy, or I don't believe my daughter should. That's your right. And how I see it is, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. And vice versa. If you want or you agree that it's okay, but don't push it on me. But the moment you push it on me and you tell me I have to accept it, now we're dealing with oppression. And I feel like that's what we dealt with. And that's what brought this back, that the media portrayed on so many levels that a lot of the things that we saw were not so, and a lot of things that we saw were so. When you look at today's media, do you see a lot of police brutality when it comes to African American and Caucasian officers? No, because there's no need. Now what you see is a lot of Trump bashing. You see a lot of negativity in terms of gun control, saying, well, you shouldn't have this and you shouldn't have that. Well, what is the problem? What is the core reason? The core reason is, let's investigate who has the gun. Let's take more time to sit down with the people who have the weapons. Let's find ways to evaluate the people who have the weapons. Because at the end of the day, guns don't kill people. People with guns kill people. It is not a situation in terms where you want to get caught up in oppression, where the guns are being taken away from the right person and then and afforded the opportunity for the person who is going to get the guns no matter what to go in and hurt and harm people. So I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I'm not going to drag it out about 12 minutes into this conversation, but I'm not going to drag it out too deep. But I wanted to talk about oppression. It's a topic where I think we need to evaluate and learn and get more in depth in, because our country is falling into an oppression, and if we're not careful, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. Let me know how you feel. Let me know if what I'm saying makes sense. If you don't agree, that's where the dislike button is. But this is an open platform. This is called Behind the Veil. I'm your host, Pierre. Once again, like I said, please give me a like, share, dislike, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel. Continue to come back on a weekly basis. I want to talk about sensible topics, things that I feel like a lot of American people or people in general are wanting to discuss, but may not feel as comfortable to discuss around a lot of people, because it may cause a problem. But that's what this YouTube platform is for. It's for us to come on this platform and to share our thoughts, our opinions, and our ideas. And that's the reason why I created this channel titled Behind the Veil. So many of us are behind the veil, and we have so much to say. We have so many positive things that could bring change to America, but we choose not to because of oppression. You've been listening to Behind the Veil TV. I'm your host, Pierre, and until next time, I'll see you next time.